Ponder upon this for a moment. Your country depends on vital goods, oil, grain, critical minerals. Then one day prices surge, supply chains vanish, and the usual trading partners suddenly slapping on tariffs like it is a game of economic poker. Now ask yourself, where do you turn? For 10 major nations, the answer is no longer the United States. It is Canada. But why? Trade is shifting, alliances are cracking, and these 10 countries are betting big on the North, changing the rules of global commerce. We're talking about billions of dollars, critical resources, and the future of international partnerships. Could your economy be next to feel the ripples of this changing tide? You better believe it. So buckle up, because this shakeup is just beginning, and you're going to want to know why the land of maple syrup and apologies is suddenly playing hardball in the global trade arena. Stay tuned. All right, let's kick things off with a big one, shall we? Number 10 on our list, China. Yes, that China. The economic behemoth, the manufacturing powerhouse, the country that, for years, has been one of America's biggest customers, especially for things like, the black stuff that keeps the world moving, oil. Now, you'd think that relationship would be as solid as a week-old dumpling, right? Wrong. So very, very wrong. Because in April, something rather astonishing happened. For the first time in recorded history, China decided to buy more crude oil from Canada than from the good old US of A. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's just a blip. A statistical anomaly. But this, my friends, is no blip. This is a pivot. A deliberate, calculated move by a nation that plays the long game. You see, China has been watching with increasing nervousness as America has started treating tariffs less like a scalpel and more like a particularly enthusiastic sledgehammer at a garden party. Coming in at number 9, we have Japan. Japan is known for meticulous planning and loyalty. But what happens when their ally acts erratically? With U.S. tariff threats on LNG, Japan looks elsewhere. Enter Canada with perfect timing. A significant energy alliance is forming. The LNG Canada project is nearing completion. Japan is first in line for Canadian gas. Shipping from Canada is faster and cheaper. All right, let's hop across the pond for number 8, the United Kingdom. Yes, Britain. America's staunchest ally, the other half of the special relationship, the country that literally shares a language and a whole lot of history with the U.S. It sounds almost counterintuitive, doesn't it? Why would one of America's oldest and closest partners even begin to think about shifting its trade focus away from the U.S. and towards Canada? Well, ask yourself this. What happens when that special relationship starts feeling a little less special? The United Kingdom, with its stiff upper lip and centuries of diplomatic experience, is watching the current American approach to international trade with a growing sense of unease. They've seen the U.S. slap tariffs on allies, sometimes with little warning or clear justification, and they're doing what any sensible sovereign nation would do. They're quietly exploring their options, and increasingly, those options are leading them to look north, across the Atlantic, to their Commonwealth cousin Canada. It's like finding out your usual tea supplier has started adding chili powder to the Earl Grey. You'd start looking for a new purveyor, wouldn't you? India's calculated coolness beyond the handshakes. India is not just rising, it's skyrocketing. Think about this for a moment. The world's most populous country, a burgeoning tech superpower, and a rapidly expanding economy. So why is India creating distance in its trade relationship with the U.S. and warming up to Canada? Trade tensions between India and the U.S. have been simmering for years. From agricultural subsidies to intellectual property rights, it's a smorgasbord of disagreements. Former President Trump imposed tariffs and revoked India's special trade privileges under the GSP. Losing that was a significant economic blow and a signal. Next up at number 6, we have South Korea. A technological titan, home to giants like Samsung and Hyundai, a nation whose economic pulse is inextricably linked to the global demand for semiconductors, smartphones, and sleek cars. You'd think their alliance with the U.S., particularly in tech, would be ironclad, a digital fortress against global uncertainty. Yet even here in the heart of high-tech Asia, whispers of diversification are growing louder, and Canada is increasingly part of that conversation. Why? Because the recent U.S. push for onshoring and friendshoring semiconductor production, coupled with legislation like the CHIPS Act, while ostensibly aimed at securing American supply chains, has sent complex signals to allies like South Korea. On one hand, it offers opportunities. On the other, it comes with strings attached, and sometimes a whiff of protectionism that makes globalized industries uneasy. South Korean tech giants, who have built their empires on intricate global supply networks, are wary of being forced to choose sides or make massive, politically motivated investments that might not align with pure business logic. Sliding into our number 5 spot is Germany. Yes, the industrial heart of Europe, a nation whose economic miracle was built on engineering prowess and, for a long time, cheap and plentiful Russian gas. Well, we all know how that particular chapter ended, don't we? Suddenly, energy security wasn't just a talking point for German politicians. It became an existential crisis. And as Germany scrambles to reconfigure its entire energy landscape, it's casting a very interested eye across the Atlantic, not just to the US, but increasingly, with a hopeful gaze towards Canada. The United States, to its credit, did step up with LNG exports to Europe when Russian gas supplies were choked off, but even that relationship isn't without its anxieties for Germany. US LNG is subject to market volatility, and there are underlying concerns about the long-term reliability and, frankly, the political whims that could influence American energy export policy. Germany, having been burned once by over-reliance on a single, unpredictable energy supplier, is understandably keen to diversify its portfolio of new best friends in the energy sector. They're looking for a supplier. At number 4, we find ourselves in France. France, a nation fiercely proud of its culture, its cuisine, and its agricultural heritage. You might think that France, with its own formidable agricultural sector and its deep ties within the European Union, would be relatively insulated from the trade winds blowing from across the Atlantic. But even the French, with their legendary gastronomic self-sufficiency, are finding reasons to look towards Canada with a more appreciative gaze, especially when their traditional trading relationships encounter, shall we say, a certain of American unpredictability. Let's be honest, trade in agricultural products between the US and Europe, including France, has often been a source of robust discussion. From disputes over hormone-treated beef to chlorinated chicken, and the perennial arguments over geographical indications, is it Champagne if it's not from Champagne? The transatlantic agricultural relationship is often more of a food fight than a friendly potluck. The US has not been shy about using tariffs or threatening to do so on iconic French products from wine to cheese in various trade spats. This creates an environment of uncertainty that French producers and indeed the French government find deeply unappetizing. Enter Canada, stage right, with a platter of poutine and some very attractive trade terms. Australia's down-under diversification beyond the usual mates. Australia, a key ally in the Pacific, shares Commonwealth ties with Canada. Heavily influenced by China and the US, Australia seeks new partnerships. Canada emerges as a significant partner in this diversification strategy. Brazil's green pivot seeking sustainable partnerships north. Brazil, a powerhouse of South America, is exploring new partnerships. With its vast biodiversity and agricultural lands, Brazil seeks sustainable development. Traditional partners like the US often bring scrutiny. Canada emerges as a collaborative alternative. Mexico's northern neighbor reassessment beyond USMCA's shadow. Mexico, our southern neighbor, deeply integrated with the U.S. economy, partner in USMCA, its economic fate tied to the U.S. Why look to Canada, its northern neighbor, for stability? USMCA has disputes, especially between the U.S. and Mexico. Issues like automotive rules, energy policy, and labor standards. Mexico's vulnerability, dependence on a powerful neighbor. The relationship can feel lopsided, subject to U.S. pressures. Canada, a quieter but more predictable partner. Their relationship is growing, marked by mutual respect. So there you have it. 10 major nations recalibrating their trade relationships and finding a new appreciation for Canada. This isn't just a random collection of anecdotes, it's a pattern. The perceived unpredictability of the United States is prompting countries to seek out the stability of Canadian partnership. Canada, with its vast resources and stable governance, is becoming an unlikely beneficiary of global anxieties. It's about trust and partners who won't suddenly change the rules. The global trade landscape is shifting, and Canada is stepping firmly into the spotlight.